And welcome to Museums Showoff. I'm Rachel Suhami, I'm the producer, and this is our first ever online show, which is really exciting. Now, let me introduce you to your host this evening. It's the marvellous and amazing Naomi Paxton.
Thank you, Rachel. Hello, everybody. Welcome to this online museum show-off. How exciting! My name is Naomi Paxton. I'll be your host for the show. We have a fantastic show for you tonight. If you are new to Museum Show-Off, then hello, thank you for joining us. I hope you enjoy it. If you are an existing Museums Show-Off audience member, well, hello and welcome back. It's lovely to see you. Well, you know what I mean. We have 8 acts for you tonight and so much good stuff. In the first half alone, you'll be hearing about video games, museum employment, 1920s lesbian doodlers, and the Wonder House. What's the Wonder House? All will be revealed. I hope you're keeping well during this weird lockdown time and staying safe. I've been balancing work with doing a bit of painting and decorating, listening to lots of Killing Eve podcasts, and eating far too many dark chocolate rice cakes. But on the whole, I think it's going okay. Now, listen, one of the best things about Museum Show-Off is the conversations that it stimulates. And one of the best things about Museums Show-Off audiences, that's you, is that you're so interested and interesting. You're the people who keep the conversation going. Now, we don't have an online chat for this show, so we ask you to take your thoughts, your reflections, your musings, your feedback to Twitter, and please tag us in at Museums Show-Off. There's 2 S's in the middle there, so at Museums Show-Off. And that just helps open up the conversation and share it with even more people. So let's start the show. Now, normally I would start the show by getting everybody clapping and cheering, getting some good energy going to welcome our first act onto the stage. I mean, you're welcome to clap and cheer, obviously, don't wake anybody up. But let's just start with a little pulse of excitement and anticipation. Ooh, that feels good. And please welcome onto your screens, Anna Mather.
Hi, my name is Hannah and I work both front and back of house in the museum sector. Usually you can find me either speaking to visitors about collections or looking after the collections behind the scene. Right now, like a lot of people, you'll find me at home, and one of my favourite things that I've found I like to do at home is to play on Animal Crossing. With Animal Crossing being one of the most popular video games at the minute, it's really not surprising that museums all over the world are currently using the game's virtual museum in order to showcase some of their real life collections. So I thought, what better way to celebrate Museum Show-Off's first ever online show than to have a little look at the Animal Crossing game and virtual museums as a place of learning. I want to kick this off by firstly mentioning that this here is actual footage of me when my favourite museums reopen. So those of you that already play Animal Crossing will be aware that this is Blathers. He is basically, for those that want a little bit more context, the director of the museum. As well as directing, Blathers also teaches and he curates. So essentially he pretty much runs the entire show, something that I'm sure a lot of us can relate to. His customer service skills are on the next level and his curatorial practice is pretty bang on for the most part. Like, I'm pretty sure that he is the king when it comes to rationalising collections. He will not accept any duplicates in his collection. Believe me, he won't be accepting any fossils that aren't already pre-assessed by him, and if he's got those fossils, he will send you marching right out that door. That being said, he doesn't seem to care very much about where these objects are coming from. It kind of makes you wonder if he's aware that there's a dodgy fox selling artwork from a trawler behind the museum. So whenever you offer to donate anything to the museum, Blathers will in return tell you about that object. His favourite thing, of course, is to tell you about the fossils, and when Blathers says that he will display your donation in a timely manner, he means it. Go to the gallery straight away and you'll see the donation on display. For example, there's this T-Rex. There are quite a few UK museums that have similar ones, but this one reminded me of Big Mike, which is one of my favourite objects from the collection at the Great North Museum Hancock in Newcastle. Big Mike is an exact replica of a bronze cast made of a T-Rex found in Montana in 1991. The original skeleton is now on loan to the Smithsonian from the Museum of the Rockies. However, the original bronze statue stands in front of the museum. If you thought that my version of Big Mike outside of my Animal Crossing museum was pretty cool, you may also enjoy the Young Paleontologist Dig Centre that I've also set up outside the museum. Some of you might recognise this picture taken from the Great North Museum, Hancock, back in 2019 when Dippy came on tour. But did you know that Dippy is also on Animal Crossing? My personal favourite is the iguanodon because of its change in perception over time, which came with new interpretation of the fossils. Remember, museum and gallery doors may be closed for now, but you can continue to enjoy these spaces either alone or with friends and family virtually. And once they reopen, they will welcome you back to have even more fun and learn even more things inside our buildings. Animal Crossing, the video game, is just one of many ways that you can enjoy virtual museums. I've been having a lot of fun meeting friends at the museum and taking lots of pictures. I even did a little bit of a photo shoot in the gallery, as well as spending a lot more time trying to get to know more information about some of the objects that I've been donating to my virtual museum. 5 minutes really isn't enough time to do this topic justice. However, because I've been enjoying it so much, I've even set up a Twitter account for my virtual museum. Right, here's the information. If you'd like to see more content like this, please do go over to Twitter and follow the museum. If you'd like to get in touch with me, you can find me here. And I think all that's left to do is to thank Museum Showoff for letting me do this set. It's been a lot of fun. Hope to speak to you all soon.
Hannah, that was fantastic. I do need to sign up to Animal Crossing. I think that might just be the push I needed. And now our second act, the hot topic of museum employment. Here to tell us all about it, quiver in anticipation, for Abby Brennan.
Hi. Now, as someone who's recently been through a Skills for the Future traineeship, I thought that I have a pretty unique perspective to share about the issue of employability within the museum sector. So last year, Kids in Museums actually did a seminar on this topic, specifically on how museums can support the employability of young people. Now, what I learned from this seminar was that there are so many people up and down the country who already are or want to start running their own skills building, work experience, education type program for young people. And that's really great, you know. It shows that people really want to bring a young perspective and a young skill set into the museum, and they want to give young people who need the extra help the skills and experiences they need to get a job. Or do they? Because sometimes it comes across that this plan isn't exactly well thought through sometimes. So personally, my experience as a trainee is actually a really positive one. I was given amazing support and I have a whole network of people I can keep in touch with to keep me in the loop if I, put in more effort. But literally everyone working in the sector will tell you just how hard it is to find work and how it's incredibly competitive, and not to mention underpaid and underfunded, but that's a separate issue. So why do people keep wanting to put more and more young, vulnerable people into a competitive job market with the intention to boost their employability when they know full well that the work just isn't there? And the work that is there is more often than not permanent, not full-time, and mostly in the capital, just like the rest of the country's wealth and every other amazing job opportunity that no one can get. See, as well, the people these programs are aimed at are, like I said, some of the most vulnerable. They're working class, they're people of colour, people living with disabilities, or some other circumstance that would create a barrier for them in finding work. Now, the problem with this is that when, at the end of their work experience, these people are thrust into a highly competitive job market that they're much less capable of dealing with than the people from privileged backgrounds, no matter how successful their work experience was. For instance, people from more privileged backgrounds can afford to move away from home in order to pursue a career. So sometimes it can seem that these work experience type projects mainly do succeed in ticking a few diversity and community checkboxes, which makes everyone look good to funders and stuff, but might not actually make as much of a positive difference to the lives of young people taking part as you might hope. Also, when applying for funding for projects such as this, museums need to explain how they will benefit from having these young people work for them. Like, are you hoping to hire people of colour so that you can learn from them and create a more inclusive workspace? Are you hoping to hire someone with a disability so that you can work with them to make your interpretations more accessible? And just for the record, I do genuinely believe that most people really have the best of intentions. But unfortunately, it can seem like a bit of an opportunity to pat yourself on the back and say, oh, look at all these young people, these young helpless fools we dragged out of the mud and taught how to use databases. Oh, we're so generous and so giving to the community. Do you like my impression of like a museum trustee? Oh my god, I'm never going to get employed after this. And it also doesn't make much sense to train up, say, 10 people to do something that is only maybe one job going for a year. Like, why train up a generation of assistant curators when you know that these jobs are seldom ever advertised? Like, why? Look at the market, see what skills are in demand, and focus on them. Now, quickly going back to the Kids in Museums seminar, one of these programs that seems to have the right approach is Big Pit in Wales, who have staff sort of on their way to retirement to train up the younger folks who eventually replace them. Because these people would otherwise take all their skills and expertise with them when they retire. Now, I can't speak to how well this works in practice, but the intent to actually provide employment is there. And what better way to support young people's employability than to actually give them work, you know? And I know you can't just create jobs out of thin air, but I think what you can do is try and provide training and skills for something that might be a kind of dying art or unique to a certain site, like the work done at Big Pit. One example I can think of is that nowadays showing films in their original format in cinemas is becoming increasingly popular, and I see jobs advertised for film projectionists. So where are the training courses to be a film projectionist? Trust me, I've looked for them. And the only way I can think of getting this skill is like some kind of super informal, indirect route of like some old guy taking you under his wing and passing on the torch of ancient film projection knowledge. I know this is just the tip of the iceberg and a very basic overview, but I hope this was good food for thought and the start of a very interesting conversation. Email or tweet me if you want to ask any questions or further the discussion. And more importantly, if you have any juicy job offers, I'll take those too. Thanks.
Definitely food for thought. Thank you very much, Abby Brennan. Now, for our next act. I promised you 1920s lesbian doodling, and would I lie to you people? No, I wouldn't. Please welcome back to Museum Showoff and to your screens, Alison Child.
Thanks, Naomi. I last came to Museum Showoff in January 2018 to talk about my passion, which is forgotten variety stars Gwen Farrer and Nora Blaney. And then I was talking about some material I'd found on them, mainly at the V&A, Blythe House. But since then, I've discovered a trunk in an attic in a private collection. And in there were some really intriguing drawings that I'd like to talk about today. But first of all, a little clip of Gwen and Nora singing and some photographs of them.
Love, 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 everybody falls in love.
So here I am now in lockdown with Gwen and Nora, and the research continues, and I'm looking very closely at some drawings which Gwen did. She was an amateur artist as well as a cellist, a comedian and a singer, and they tell a lot about the special off-stage as well as on-stage relationship that Gwen and Nora had. They were lesbians at a time when, of course, that couldn't be publicly acknowledged, but with their recordings and stage performance, they went as close as they could to revealing the true nature of their relationship.
Alone we two, our campfire gleams. Tonight we will find the trail of our dreams. The purple hills, this call of the west. Your face close to mine, our lips are pressed. Bang, 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 bang.
I think Gwen made these drawings as a kind of love offering to Nora, a way of finding humour in shared experiences. During lockdown, a friend of mine, Cookie Arnone, has been making her own little drawings and posting them on Facebook. And I've noticed a similar scatological theme in Gwen's drawings and in Cookie's. There's no record that Nora did any drawings in return, but she did write a piece of music for Gwen. She was a composer as well as being a wonderful pianist. And here is My Cello Man that Nora wrote and they recorded together in 1923. So thanks for listening. I hope you enjoyed that. If you'd like a copy of my book, it's available for £10 on my website, www.behindthelines.info. Bye.
Bye, Alison. Thank you very much. What fun. Atmospheric music and naughty doodling. What more could you wish for? And now, put your hands together, actually or metaphorically, and please welcome to your screens Sushma Jansari and Nick Harris.
Ring, 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 ring. Hey Shushma, what's up? Oh, you're doing museum show off, that's cool. How does it work now that we're all on lockdown? Oh, it's pre-recorded. Yeah, that makes sense, Yeah, I could do something with you. When do you want to do it? You want to do it on Zoom or something? Yeah, look, I know everyone's sick of Zoom, but I can't really be involved unless, we're talking with each other. No, you've already recorded it. Well, it's not going to be hugely straightforward to insert me into something you've already recorded. Well, and it's due tomorrow. Do you really need me in it? Yeah, I know I'm there for every show, but this is... Okay, fine, yeah, sure. I'm sure I could find some kind of in no way convoluted way of including myself in the video you've already made. It's not going to be weird whatsoever.
Hello, my name is Sushma Jansari and I'm the host of a brand new podcast series called The Wonder House. Now, The Wonder House is all about decolonising museums, and I set it up because I was having some really interesting, exciting conversations with people, colleagues from across the sector. We were talking over coffee, at conferences, and I was increasingly aware that actually quite a lot of people were totally excluded from these discussions because they weren't able to come along or for whatever other reasons there were. And I wanted to set up a brand new and very free resource for anyone who was interested, so they could come, listen, learn something from the conversations and think about how they might want to try different things, how to experiment, and also to find a way that worked for them, their institutions, the collections that they worked with as well. I'm quite new to the whole idea of podcasts. I listen to quite a few now, but this time last year when I was just setting it up with Nick, I had really very little idea at all. So the first thing I did was to rope Nick in, and so I now have an amazing producer. Another thing I did was, I'm a curator, so the visual is quite important to me. I hired a really talented illustrator, and I've long admired her work. Her name's Alicia Nandra, and she designed the most fantastic logos and artwork for the podcast. So it's distinctive, it's bright pink, and I love pink. I love animal print, you can probably tell as well, and it's all there, and that's quite exciting. I really wanted to have people who I really admire on the podcast, and so I took a very deep breath and approached 6 people and asked if they would be on this brand new podcast series that no one had ever heard of, because I'd never done anything like this before. And you know what? They all said yes. I was genuinely surprised, but very grateful to them. And so I have this really stellar lineup for season 1. The first episode is with Subhadra Das, the second with Miranda Lowe, third with Sarah Wajid, fourth with Rachel Minot, the fifth with Sadia Qureshi, and the sixth with Margot Finn. And they all tackle different aspects of decolonising, whether it's in museums with specific collections, whether it's, how do you share these very, very difficult stories, for example, eugenics, with the wider public. And I've learned so much through doing this podcast series, even, for just season 1. I found myself, I was really worried about not having done enough research before talking to these people, who, as I mentioned, I really admire. And so I found myself putting together some really epic briefing notes, and they come to about 25 to 30 pages long. But it means that I know, hopefully, what I'm talking about when I do speak to them, and know the kind of questions to ask. But also I found out some really interesting things. I mean, for example, a lot of people say, I do a bit of outreach and stuff. But with Miranda Lowe, for example, she really, really does the outreach. She does a massive amount in schools. She goes, to all over the world, as well as across the UK, talking to people, young school children. She does lots of podcasts. She does loads of YouTube videos. And it's all about sharing these incredible collections with people, but also, and I think this is really important, letting them know that working in a museum with natural history collections, which people tend to be slightly less familiar with, is a viable career opportunity, including for people from, BAME communities. And I think that's a really important one. It's quite surprising to me, but having a blog post that's linked with each episode of a podcast is actually really valuable. You get to share some really useful information about each person you're interviewing, bits of biographical information, the work they've been doing, lots of links as well. And also it helps to direct people to the episode too. So I think that's another sort of key thing. If you're going to do a podcast, maybe write a blog post to go with it. I've been really surprised at how well season 1 has done. I mean, this is only 6 episodes, but they seem to have really punched above their weight. And I think we should all have the space to experiment. And if listening into these conversations, which are friendly, they're hopefully interesting, and also I hope that they're enjoyable, because I wouldn't be doing this job if I didn't really enjoy what I do. And I think that comes across in all the conversations I've had with everyone so far. Yes, it's very difficult work. Yes, it's very emotional. There's also something empowering, exciting, and really joyful about it as well. And I think that really does come across in the episodes. But for season 1, we did have some limitations. I mean, the whole thing is totally self-funded from me. And as we all know, museum salaries are a bit rubbish. So we mostly had to concentrate on people who were based in London, with one exception. Sadia very kindly came down from Birmingham to record an episode. But for season 2, I'm really keen to move outside the capital and speak to people across the UK who are doing some really exciting, innovative work. And we've already recorded one, and we've had someone come over from Amsterdam actually, which is very exciting. And the second one we're recording is with Dan Vo, and well, the rest you're going to have to listen and find out for season 2. But I have to say, I'm very excited by it. So my final message is listen to The Wonder House, and do tell your friends all about it, and subscribe. If you have any suggestions about anything you'd like to hear about, or somebody that you'd like me to talk to, just let me know, and you can reach me at The Wonder House on Twitter. Thanks so much.
Thank you both. That was brilliant. I'm definitely going to add that to my podcast list, to just be Killing Eve and The Wonder House. That's a pretty good combination. Now, our next act, our first act of the second half, has a fantastic background on his presentation. And I first saw it and was deeply, deeply jealous, there's been this whole thing, hasn't there, been about looking at people's bookshelves and the things behind them on online streamings or workshops or teachings or whatever. I deliberately sat in front of a plain background for tonight. I painted this, by the way. This is one of my painting jobs. It might look black, but it's actually blue, dark blue, and it's called Portrait of a Blue Stocking, which is very pleasing. It's pleasing for me because I'm a historian and that made me smile. But I did do, I had, this is quite weird, I had an interview and audition to join the Magic Circle last week. Can I do a bit of magic here and there? And it was quite weird. So I was in my study, actually, so there were just books behind me. And the interviewer was asking me which magic books I had. And then he was obviously looking at the background because he said, oh, isn't that this book by so-and-so in the back? He said, I recognise the spine. And I went, gosh, it was. And thank goodness I hadn't strategically placed that, but thank goodness it was there. Anyway, I passed. You'll be thrilled to know. So I've passed my interview and my first audition. It's always weird, isn't it, doing magic tricks over. Anyway, so I'm now an apprentice officially, and I next have to pass my exam to be a full member. So I've sent them videos, magic, and will keep your fingers crossed for me. But being an apprentice has given me access to the website and to the library, and they've got all the journal of the Magic Circle is called the Magic Circular, and they've got all the journal issues from 1906 onwards are available online through their library. It's been amazing. I've just been scooting through and looking for bits and bobs and just learning about magic from the past and who was doing what and where and when, and it's all very interesting. We'll see if I pass the exam. Don't worry, I'll keep you posted. If I never mention this again, it didn't go well. But there we go. Anyway, plain background, exciting backgrounds. Our first act, the second half, has a brilliant one, as I already mentioned. He's also fascinating. So I hope your curiosity is thoroughly piqued. Please make some noise, clap, cheer, whoop, wiggle with anticipation, send all your good energy to the screen, and welcome Aaron Rees.
Hey there, I'm Aaron Rees and I'm a PhD researcher at the University of Leeds, and I have wide-ranging interests in all sorts of things, including cats, food, taking long walks, laughing at memes, and contemporary museum acquisition practices. My PhD looks at how museums can start collecting social media content, and the ways in which the dynamic, fast-flowing world of social media is a right pain in the arse for our traditional collections management practices. They are practices that are designed around collecting static, solid, good old-fashioned material things. Right. So throughout all the very fascinating facets of my PhD research, I have found the relationship between museums and memes the most interesting. I mean, I spent about the first 3 months of my PhD trying to come up with excellent museum-y, meme-y puns before realising that I wasn't clever enough and I should probably just focus on my core research for now. However, I did manage to come up with a presentation title, What Does It Meme When Social Media Becomes Part of the Museum Collection? Now that was for my first conference as a PhD student. Not game-changing, but a good start, I thought to myself, and I patted myself on the back for that one. So, as I'm sure you can imagine, museums weren't really engaging with memes very much in 2017 when I started my research. There were some early forms of creativity from the Museum of Moving Image in New York, who did an excellent exhibition on reaction GIFs in 2014. And I would never forgive myself for not paying respect to Russell Dornan and his Zachary Quinto museum memes. But generally, there wasn't a whole load of interest. But then comes Mara Dixon. We chat. She does a culture themes magic, and boom, the hashtag Buse meme is born. So there we have it. The 22nd of August 2018, a day to be remembered in the history books, the inaugural hashtag Muse Meme Day. It was amazing! Global press coverage, museum professionals and members of the public all memeing about museums. There were some excellent in-jokes about working visitor services and some great examples of memes producing cheap laughs at the curator's expense. And most exciting of all, museums were even encouraging people to meme their collections. I mean, wow! If we're not seeing the memeability of an object being considered in decisions about digitization priorities over the next few years, then I'll consider this all a complete failure. So, I think it's fair to say that since 2018 there has been a blossoming relationship between museum and memes. And I think that they're ready to take their relationship to the next stage. I really want to see memes being readily considered for acquisition by museums in a range of different contexts. There's a whole range of work by media scholars out there who have done some excellent work in showing us how memes are a form of storytelling, how they are part of our growing digital folklore, and how they're visualizations of online communication and exchanges. I think that they're all of these things, and they're a part of our wider digital cultural heritage. So what am I doing about that? Well, I'm currently working with the National Science and Media Museum to collect a meme as a final part of my PhD research. We're in discussions with the wonderful Merle, and the absolute unit is the meme in question. Now, I think we can all appreciate the majesty of this massive sheep, but more than that, it's a great meme and it tells us a really interesting story about an image's journey from physical photograph to internet meme. We're also seeing an awakening of interest in collecting social media, including memes, as museums look to start collecting around the COVID-19 pandemic. The Museum of London in particular has done a great call out as part of their Collecting COVID programme. And also, in a really bizarre turn of events during the lockdown, my husband ended up being memed when he played the drums to the BBC News theme music. I read an article just a few days ago with him cited as an example of the type of memes museums might want to be considering collecting to represent the creativity in lockdown. Worlds colliding or what? He just doesn't understand boundaries. Museums are my thing. So, anyway, that out of my system, I just want to end by saying that memes are more than just funny pictures. Don't get me wrong, memes are very funny a lot of the time, but they can also be dark. They can be directly inciting hate, or they can be indirectly prejudiced. But they can also be wholesome, highlight absurdities, make fun of contradictions, and make direct political statements. They are a force to be reckoned with, and I firmly believe that museums need to be serious about considering them as objects for the future. That's all from me. Thanks. Bye.
Thank you, Aaron. You are a force to be reckoned with yourself. Thank you. What a great set. And now, Museum in a Box. Now, fun fact, Museum in a Box was founded after George, who you're going to meet, met co-founder Tom Flynn at a museum show-off gig. How cool is that? It's pretty cool. As is Museum in a Box. Let's hear more about it. Please make some noise and welcome to your screens, Charlie Cattle-Killick and George Oates.
Hello Museum Showoff, and thank you for this opportunity to talk about our company Museum in a Box. So for those who aren't familiar with Museum in a Box, we're an edtech company based out of London, and at the centre of our world lies this, the box. It's an internet connected device with some speakers inside, and it works by placing 3D printed museum replicas on top of it, or 2D picture postcards. And when you do that, an audio response will play. So what does that look like? Well, it looks like this. So the interaction being so simple means that you can fill the box with almost any audio you can imagine. It could be an oral history, an object description, or, as we heard, even a piece of music. We've been able to work with museums all over the place, both big and small. And excitingly, at the end of 2019, we opened a web shop, which enabled us to start selling make-your-own kits. So rather than us developing collections for a museum on their behalf, or in collaboration with them, people now all around the world are buying their own boxes and making their own museum collections about whatever they want to make, in schools, libraries, at home, or even at work. So some main takeaways from me would include that, firstly, people have short attention spans, so keep things short. We find that 1 minute is a real sweet spot, because any longer, even if it's interesting content, people's minds start to drift. So keep things short and to around that 1 minute mark. Secondly, and this is a really important one, children love to relate everything back to food. We helped a group of school children in Cambridge recently make a collection called Female Flight Firsts, all about the great achievements of various women in history in the aviation sector. And what they really wanted to teach us there, and the main thing we learned, was that Valentina Tereshkova, Russia's first and youngest female cosmonaut in space, she landed in a field somewhere, and she got into deep trouble because she went to have dinner with these villagers who helped her out of a spacesuit. So that's one thing we learned from them. Another was that the aviator Amelia Earhart spilt tomato juice on her bright yellow plane. She drank hot chocolate during her flights, and she also had dinner when she landed. So there you are. Children love to talk about food, even if they're looking at a museum object. And with that, I'll hand over to George Oates, the company's founder and CEO, to talk a little bit about what's been happening more recently during lockdown.
It's been a very interesting last few months. We launched our online shop, shop.museuminbox.org, in November last year, 2019. And we basically worked the whole year, 2019, to get that shop online. And so actually the start of 2020 was fantastic. There's a school in Arkansas that bought 10 boxes to use across the whole school. And we sent a make-your-own kit to Iceland to an author's retreat. And, all this amazing stuff. So international sales, and we're like, woohoo! And then the virus happened. And now the online shop is basically dormant, and we're trying to figure out what to do. It's tricky because, the whole sort of raison d'etre of Museum in a Box is to bring objects from museums out into people's hands and into the world, and, literally print them and send them into classrooms and stuff. So we just can't do that. But we've been tweeting recently about a call to action that we put out to try to partner with around about 10 UK museums. And the reason we're doing that is to apply for the virus response fund from the Esme Fairbairn Foundation. It's the one called Sustaining Engagement with Collections. And they're looking for projects that think about experimental or innovative interventions with collections online. And we would like the funding to help support 10 partners to create at least one collection for the Museum in a Box platform. So at the end of the project, we would have 10 new collections that can be offered freely to anybody online, and also potentially to be sort of converted into a physical collection like our Greek gods and goddesses. Already we have the Petrie Museum of Egyptology on board, which is super cool. And the list is growing. So jump on board if you like. Here's a link. We'd love to have you register interest. Bye, Museum Showoff. Bye, the world. Thanks for watching.
Thank you, Charlie and George. That was great. Do check out their website to jump on board and find out more about their partnerships and what's happening with Museum in a Box. Now, our next act wants to know if you are a football fan. Either way, send your good energy and your love to the screen, and please welcome Laura Crossley.
So, whether you're a football fan or not, and no judgment at all, let me try to persuade you that the National Football Museum is awesome, if I do say so myself, through the tenuous and frankly ill-thought-out medium of random lyrics from New Order's classic football song, World in Motion. And I can only apologise to the whole of New Order and the 1990 England football team. The song starts, express yourself, create the space. At the National Football Museum, we're all about making space for people to tell their own stories about football. See what I did there? Lots of the staff love football too, but let me just say that is not a prerequisite, and you can apply for a job at the museum whether or not you like football. We welcome everybody. We know how much football means to so many people, and we've got a campaign called Game of Our Lives, which is asking people to tell us why football means so much to them, whether it's memories of a special match, a favourite player, or spending time with family. Whilst the elite game will always be featured at the museum, we're also about telling stories of lower league and grassroots football, and we're really proud to give space to people to tell those diverse stories. The song goes on, beat the man, take him on. Now, New Order may well have been talking about successfully getting the ball past an opposing player, but I'm going to talk about taking on the man with a capital T and a capital M. I mean, taking on the man might be a bit strong, but give me a break. I'm trying to work with lyrics that were originally written as the England football team song for the 1990 World Cup. They were not written to pithily encapsulate the work of the National Football Museum. So basically, we don't just talk about elite men's football, because as great as elite men's football is, it wouldn't be very nuanced just to talk about that. So instead, we're working towards ensuring that 50% of the content in the museum is about women's experiences of football, for example, as fans or players or backroom staff. And we're dedicated to telling diverse stories of football and challenging discrimination. So, for example, in February, we launched LGBTQ plus tours about football history. We work with partners like Kick It Out to tackle racism in football. Football is for everyone, and we're determined to celebrate diverse stories and ensure that everyone feels welcome both at the museum and in the world of football. So on we go, and we have the lyric, "When something's good, it's never gone." And here I can only assume that Bernard Sumner and co were referring to the fantastic football reminiscence sessions at the National Football Museum, which mean older fans can get together to talk about memories of football in the past, a scheme that improves well-being and decreases social isolation. The sessions are still happening remotely during the lockdown, and it's been a really great way to bring people together. World in Motion wouldn't be complete without the famous John Barnes rap towards the end of the track, and one of the lines in that rap is, "This ain't a football song." Now, of course, it sort of is a football song in many ways, and of course, similarly, the National Football Museum is a museum about football. However, like any museum, we use our collections to tell much broader stories about society in the past, present and future. Visit the museum and you can find out about working class histories, gender politics, unionism, leisure time, fandom and much, much more. And those universal themes mean that people who don't like football can still find things that resonate with them at the museum. And that's something that makes me really proud. So I can't finish this, let's face it, very, very naff look at the work of the National Football Museum through the song World in Motion without looking at the chorus line, "Love's got the world in motion." And I've racked my brain to find a tenuous link between that line and the work of the National Football Museum. And to be honest, I've pretty much failed. But here's my rather poor effort. Football's a game that brings out great passion in people, whether it's Premier League or a kickabout on a Sunday. It's this passion and love that keeps football going and alive. Without the fans, there'd be no football. In the museum, we let that passion shine through in everything we do. Our displays are bold and bright, and we take pride in taking tribalism out of the game by talking about football and not boiling it down to one club. Our staff are really passionate about their work and are always looking for new ways to tell new stories and bring new voices into the museum. And we're determined to keep transforming the museum to make sure we continue to tell diverse stories that are relevant to people's lives. So, I hope you've enjoyed my whistle-stop tour through the work of the National Football Museum via the medium of World in Motion. And now finished, I wonder if it would have been easier to not involve the band New Order in this talk at all, and I'm really sorry to them, but who am I to deny this opportunity to one of the most important and greatest bands of all time? Thank you, New Order, for being amazing. If you've never visited the National Football Museum, I'd love you to get in touch and let me know what would make you want to visit, because hey, may as well use this opportunity to do some audience research. Thank you. And also get in touch if you've got any comments or questions about the set. I'm on Twitter at LF Crossley. Thank you so much for listening.
Thank you, Laura. Yes, do get in touch with her if you have any questions or want to find out more. I've been to the National Football Museum actually in Manchester. It was great. And I got distracted by Automata. They've got lots of coin-operated things. And there was one of those laughing, you know, the sort of laughing clown things. It was a laughing goalie and I loved it. It was just there going, oh, 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 oh. Yeah, good fun. Now, it's our final act and we're going to keep the musical theme going. Send some love to the screen and welcome MJ Hibbert.
Hello, I'm MJ Hibbert, and this song is about my favourite kind of museum, and that is a museum of one thing. Well, you can keep your natural history, your science and your British, your Louvre or MOMA. I want something specific. Don't force my aching limbs to roam through galleries and wings. A single room will suit me in a museum of one thing. A museum of one thing has got me under its power. A museum of one thing gets done in under half an hour. One big fact is just enough to give your mind a treat. It's better for your soul, or so the souls upon your feet. I'm not part of the school party, I will not I'm here for the fridge magnets in the museum of one thing. A museum of one thing will never overwhelm your brain. A museum of one thing leaves time for tea in the cafe. But a museum of one thing contains a secret and free gift. Each museum of one thing smuggles a second part within. E.g. the Sourdough Museum of San Francisco taught me about sourdough, but also San Francisco. The Calamari Museum in Sheffield is all about the Industrial Revolution, but also Sheffield. The Philately Museum of Singapore isn't just about stamps. The Samuel Johnson Birthplace Museum in Lichfield isn't just about Sam. You get the general idea. So whenever I visit somewhere new, that's where I want to go. A museum of one thing will teach me all I need to know about a topic relevant to the place I've ended up. And if that doesn't work, then it's all aboard the hop on hop off open tour top bus. A museum of one thing does more than it says on the tin. A museum of one thing is a museum of two things. Two things. Thank you very much.
Bet there was lots of sofa dancing going on during that set. MJ Hibbert and his very catchy song. Fantastic stuff. What a way to end the show. Because it is the end of the show. No, it isn't. It is. But don't worry. If you want to watch it all again or tell other people about it, the show will be going up on our YouTube channel in the next week or so. And obviously you can keep in touch on Twitter. And obviously you can sign up to be part of the next show on July the 14th if you want to tell us about what you've been up to, what you do, and your life in and around museums. Thank you so much for joining us for this online show. I know she won't be able to hear you, but I want you to clap and cheer for our glorious leader, Rachel Suhami, who's put all this thing together and done an amazing job. Please give it up for all our brilliant presenters, and I hope to see you soon. Take care of yourselves. Stay alert, whatever that means. Wash your hands, chin up chickens, and take care until we see you again. Bye-bye.